True confidence is not loud, persuasive, or demanding. It is quiet, steady, and deeply rooted. It does not come from proving yourself, but from being at ease with who you are. When silence, self-trust, and presence come together, confidence arises naturally without effort. We live in a world that equates noise with presence, talking with authority, and explaining with mastery. Yet, real strength often resides in silence. Alan Watts frequently reminded us that the quiet moments, the pauses between words, carry far more depth than speech itself. Silence is not emptiness. It is the foundation upon which true confidence stands. When you embrace silence, you are no longer scrambling to prove your worth. You are no longer trying to fill every space with words, gestures, or explanations. Instead, you allow yourself to simply be. And paradoxically, being without constant justification often communicates more to others than endless argument ever could. People sense presence even when it is silent, because authenticity resonates beyond words. Silence allows reflection. In moments of quiet, you can observe your thoughts without becoming them. You can notice your impulses, your fears, and your reactions. In this observation, you discover a layer of self that is grounded and unshakable. It is from this place that confidence emerges, not as a performance, but as a natural state of being. When you speak from this ground, your words carry weight. When you act from this ground, your presence commands attention without demand. Consider how a tree does not announce its growth, it simply grows. Its strength is visible in its stability, its roots, its calm persistence. Similarly, human silence is not a gap to be filled, but a statement of grounding. Over time, those who practice stillness discover that others respond not to noise, but to presence. Your confidence becomes an undercurrent that shapes interactions without needing explanation. Silence also helps you listen to others, to your environment, and to your own inner voice. When we constantly speak to be heard, we stop hearing. True listening deepens understanding, strengthens empathy, and enhances perception. These qualities naturally reinforce confidence, because when you truly see and understand a situation, you act with authority and clarity, without the need for verbal armor. Moreover, silence protects your energy. Each explanation, each argument, each attempt to justify yourself is a tiny drain on your vitality. Over time, this accumulates into exhaustion and self-doubt. By embracing silence, you conserve energy, remain centered, and let your natural capabilities shine. Confidence, in this sense, is not something you manufacture. It is a resource you reclaim by not scattering yourself. Have you noticed moments when staying silent made you feel stronger or more confident? Share your experience in the comments. Reflect on this question. What would change in your life if silence became the foundation of your confidence, rather than words or explanations? This is the quiet power that grows slowly, steadily, and inevitably, far deeper than the loudest declaration ever could. One of the most profound discoveries in life is that confidence does not come from approval. It comes from trust. Not trust in luck, chance, or even other people's opinions, but trust in yourself. Alan Watts often emphasized that the restless mind seeks external validation as if it were oxygen. Yet real confidence is a quiet certainty that arises when you stop looking outward for reassurance and start looking inward for guidance. Self-trust is the foundation of every action, every decision, and every interaction. When you truly trust yourself, you no longer feel compelled to justify your choices to others. You no longer panic when someone disagrees or misunderstands you. Instead, you act from a place of calm certainty, knowing that your perspective, your feelings, and your actions are valid because you are living them honestly. Validation is no longer a crutch. It becomes irrelevant. Think of how often we seek permission to exist as we are. How many times have you felt the urge to explain your decisions, defend your feelings, or justify your dreams? This is the mind trying to find safety in other people's acceptance. But here is the subtle truth. No one can validate your life in the way you already can. Other people's approval is temporary and often conditional. Self-trust, however, is constant. It does not waver with opinions or circumstances. Self-trust also encourages authenticity. When you are anchored in your own inner certainty, you stop performing for the approval of others. You stop bending, explaining, and contorting yourself to fit expectations. Instead, you show up as you are, flawed, human, and real. This authenticity is magnetic because it is unforced. People can sense when someone is comfortable in their own skin, and that presence speaks louder than words ever could. Moreover, self-trust is liberating. You begin to take risks without fear of judgment because your worth is no longer dependent on external perception. You start conversations, pursue opportunities, and express yourself fully, not because you need others to nod in agreement, but because your internal compass guides you. This freedom is the essence of true confidence, acting without attachment to outcome, without the burden of proving anything. Practicing self-trust is not instantaneous. It requires patience, reflection, and small acts of courage. Each time you choose to follow your intuition, instead of seeking reassurance, you strengthen your inner authority. Iaki. Moment you honor your feelings, instead of apologizing for them, you reclaim a piece of your power. Slowly, the need for external validation diminishes, replaced by a steady, unshakable confidence. Have you experienced a moment when trusting yourself felt more powerful than being understood or validated by others? Share your story in the comments below. And consider this: what would your life feel like if you completely relied on your own judgment and stopped seeking approval from anyone else? Self-trust is the quiet revolution of the mind. It transforms dependence into freedom, fear into clarity, and uncertainty into authentic confidence. Confidence is not something you declare, it is something you inhabit. One of the most subtle yet powerful truths Alan Watts often shared is that presence, the quiet, unwavering attention you bring to the moment, communicates far more than any explanation or argument ever could. When you are truly present, people sense it instantly, even before you speak. Presence does not demand belief or approval, it simply is, and that alone commands respect. Many of us mistake words for influence. We believe that if we articulate ourselves clearly enough, others will notice our worth. Yet true confidence is rarely verbal. It is felt in the way you move, the calm steadiness of your breath, the relaxed alignment of your body, and the focus with which you engage with life. People can intuit your inner state from these cues, long before they hear a single word. Presence is a language of its own, subtle but undeniable, and it is far more trustworthy than any persuasive speech. When presence becomes your anchor, the urge to over-explain dissolves. You no longer feel compelled to justify your choices or defend your intentions. You are aware of the world around you, yet not ensnared by its judgments. This is because presence is rooted in being, not in doing. It is a state of quiet attention, a mindfulness that allows you to move through life with confidence without needing to assert it. In essence, people respond to how you are, not to what you say about yourself. Consider how a confident person walks into a room. Their steps are measured, their posture steady, their gaze intentional. There is no need for grandiose explanations or constant self-promotion. Their energy radiates assurance simply because they inhabit the moment fully. Conversely, when someone is anxious, desperate, or scattered, no amount of words can mask that inner turmoil. Presence cannot be faked. It is cultivated. Cultivating presence requires practice. Start by observing yourself in small interactions. Notice your breathing, the quality of your attention, and your alignment with the current moment. Pause before responding to external stimuli and allow yourself to fully experience the space around you. In these pauses, confidence quietly grows. Each moment of still, attentive engagement reinforces the subtle authority of presence. Presence also deepens connection. When you are fully attentive, others feel seen, heard, and respected. This fosters trust, which naturally amplifies confidence. People gravitate toward those who can hold space calmly and intentionally. Presence, therefore, not only a personal power, it is relational. Have you noticed a time when simply being present made others respect or listen to you more than any words could? Share your experience in the comments below. Reflect quietly on this. How would your life change if you focused more on inhabiting the moment and explaining yourself? True confidence is the silent rhythm of presence. It speaks without sound, commands without force, and shines without needing validation. There is a subtle trap that many of us fall into, the belief that more words equal more clarity, more understanding, or even more respect. Alan Watts often highlighted that over-explaining is not a sign of strength. It is a sign of attachment, of unease, and of a mind seeking approval. Each additional justification you offer is an echo of doubt, a whisper that your confidence is dependent on others' acceptance. True inner power, however, is quiet, concentrated, and undiluted. Over-explaining splits your energy. Instead of being fully present, you scatter yourself across the space between what you are feeling, what you are thinking, and how others might interpret you. Each word becomes a tiny surrender of your authority. The more you justify, defend, or elaborate, the more the listener's opinion becomes entangled with your self-worth. And paradoxically, the more you talk, the less compelling you appear. Energy follows attention. When your attention is divided among explanations, your presence weakens. Consider how people respond to silence versus verbosity. A person who speaks only when necessary, who trusts that their actions and demeanor communicate clearly, holds far more influence than someone who feels the need to constantly clarify. Over-explaining signals a lack of trust, both in yourself and in the listener. It implies that your words alone must carry the weight of validation. In contrast, someone grounded in inner power knows that presence, consistency, and authenticity speak louder than any justification. Over-explaining also diminishes simplicity, which is the essence of clarity. When explanations multiply, the message becomes diluted, and meaning gets lost in complexity. Your intentions may be pure, but the impact is diminished. People may feel overwhelmed, distracted, or even unconvinced, not because your ideas lack value, but because your energy has spread too thin. Inner power thrives in focus. Over-explaining fragments it. The antidote is conscious restraint. Act with intention, not compulsion. Offer words only when they add insight, clarity, or genuine understanding, not when they serve your anxiety. Allow pauses to exist. Let silence breathe, and trust that your presence alone carries authority. Each moment you refrain from unnecessary explanation reinforces your self-trust and amplifies your quiet power. Moreover, over-explaining is often rooted in fear, the fear of being misunderstood, judged, or rejected. But these fears are projections of the mind, not reflections of reality. By observing this fear without acting on it, by choosing presence over justification, you reclaim the energy that fuels genuine confidence. True power is not loud. It does not need to convince. It simply is. Have you ever noticed how explaining too much made you feel drained or less confident? Share your experience in the comments below. Reflect on this question. How would your life change if you trusted your presence more than your words? Inner power grows quietly. It is concentrated, steady, and undeniable, but only when it is allowed to exist without the dilution of over-explanation. One of the most subtle but profound truths about confidence is that it cannot be manufactured through performance. Alan Watts often spoke about the difference between being and pretending. When you are constantly performing, shaping your words, gestures, and expressions to please or impress others, you lose touch with your true self. Confidence is not a role to play, it is a state to inhabit. The moment you stop performing, it begins to arise naturally. Performance is exhausting because it demands constant attention to perception. You monitor reactions, adjust your tone, and edit your actions, all while trying to maintain an image that is acceptable, impressive, or convincing. This splits your energy between reality and a fictional version of yourself. True confidence, in contrast, is undivided. It flows from being fully present, fully grounded, and fully at ease with who you are, independent of external approval. When you stop performing, you allow authenticity to emerge. Your actions, words, and presence no longer serve an agenda, they simply express who you are. And when you act from this authenticity, people respond, not because they are persuaded, but because they recognize the integrity behind your presence. There is a quiet magnetism in being real, a depth of influence that no performance can replicate. Moreover, performing erodes self-trust. Every time you seek to manage how others perceive you, you imply that your natural state is insufficient. Over time, this creates internal tension, self-doubt, and anxiety. By contrast, ceasing to perform reinforces the message that you trust yourself. You are confident enough to let life meet you as you are, without edits or defenses. This self-trust becomes the foundation upon which authentic confidence grows. Performance also blurs the line between action and reaction. When you act to impress, you are no longer responding to the present moment. You are responding to imagined expectations. By letting go of performance, you reclaim your agency. Your choices become deliberate, grounded, and reflective of your values rather than dictated by others' imagined opinions. This shift, from reactive to intentional, strengthens your inner authority. The paradox is clear. The less you try to appear confident, the more confident you become. Confidence thrives in simplicity, presence, and authenticity. It is not created by force, but by release. Release of the need to prove, to perform, to persuade. Each time you stop performing, you reclaim energy, clarity, and presence, allowing true confidence to emerge effortlessly. Have you ever experienced a moment when you stopped trying to impress and felt a deeper, more natural confidence? Share your story in the comments below. Reflect on this gently. What would change in your life if you embraced being overperforming? True confidence is quiet, effortless, and grounded. It is not a mask you wear, but the essence of who you already are. There is a profound power in stillness, an authority that is quiet, unassuming, yet unmistakably present. Alan Watts often reminded us that the mind's restless nature obscures this inner authority. We are so accustomed to filling every moment with action, explanation, or distraction that we rarely pause to recognize the strength that exists in calm observation. Stillness is not inaction, it is awareness. It is the space from which true confidence emanates. When you cultivate stillness, you allow yourself to step out of the endless cycle of reaction. Most people measure their value by their output, their arguments, or the approval they can garner from others. In contrast, stillness demonstrates that your power does not depend on constant validation. It is a quiet, grounded certainty that resonates from within. A person who is still carries authority, not because they demand it, but because their presence alone communicates clarity and composure. Stillness also sharpens perception. In quiet moments, you begin to notice the subtle rhythms of life, the unspoken dynamics in conversations, the energy in a room, the intentions behind actions. This awareness allows you to respond with discernment rather than reactivity. Confidence arises naturally when you act from observation and understanding rather than compulsion and fear. The still mind perceives what is necessary, while the restless mind reacts indiscriminately. Furthermore, stillness fosters patience. When you are anchored in calm awareness, you are not rushed by urgency or pressured by the need to explain or justify. You learn to wait, to sten, and to allow situations to unfold naturally. This patience itself is a form of authority. People sense when someone is unhurried, when their energy is stable, and when their actions are intentional. It is far more persuasive than any argument or performance could be. Stillness also cultivates resilience. Life often challenges our assumptions and tests our ego. A still mind is not easily shaken by external turbulence. It observes, adapts, and responds from a place of inner certainty. Confidence, in this sense, is not fragile. It is rooted in the unmovable core of self-awareness. The calm person does not need constant reassurance, and this steadiness radiates authority naturally. Moreover, stillness connects you to your inner wisdom. In silence, you hear the subtle voice of intuition, the quiet guidance that often gets drowned out by noise and distraction. Following this guidance reinforces trust in yourself and your choices. It allows you to navigate life with clarity, decisiveness, and understated confidence. Have you ever noticed how moments of stillness make you feel more grounded and confident? Share your experience in the comments below. Reflect on this. What would happen in your life if you allowed yourself to embrace stillness more often instead of reacting to every situation? True inner authority does not shout. It rests quietly, observes, and acts with purpose. Stillness is the path to discovering this profound confidence that cannot be taken away or shaken by external circumstances. One of the most liberating realizations in life is that other people do not need to see the world the way you do. Alan Watts often emphasized that the need to correct, persuade, or justify oneself is a subtle form of attachment, an energy drain that robs peace and quiet confidence. When you accept that others may be wrong, misunderstand, or misjudge you, you reclaim your power and preserve your inner calm. Letting others be wrong is not indifference, it is wisdom. The mind often seeks validation through agreement. We feel compelled to explain, defend, or convince because we equate being understood with being valued. Yet this is a false equation. Other people's perceptions belong to them. They are shaped by their experiences, beliefs, and fears. Trying to overwrite them with explanations is a futile effort, much like trying to hold water in your hand. Peace arises when you stop struggling against these perceptions and instead focus on your own integrity and presence. Allowing others to be wrong strengthens your confidence because it shifts the locus of control inward. You no longer rely on external approval to feel whole. When you release the need to be understood or validated, you act from self-trust rather than fear. Decisions become clearer, interactions calmer, and energy flows more freely. Each act of restraint reinforces your inner authority and quiet confidence. There is also a profound relational benefit. When you stop correcting everyone, you create space for authentic connection. People feel less pressured, more open, and more willing to listen. By releasing the insistence on agreement, you allow conversations to unfold naturally. This does not mean passivity or compromise of values. It means choosing your battles and conserving your energy for what truly matters. Moreover, letting others be wrong cultivates patience and empathy. You begin to recognize that everyone is navigating life from their own perspective. Misunderstandings, judgments, and disagreements are not personal attacks. They are reflections of each person's inner world. By observing this without reaction, you expand your capacity for compassion and maintain equilibrium in situations that would otherwise provoke tension or defensiveness. This practice also deepens self-awareness. Every time you refrain from correcting or justifying, you notice your own triggers, attachments, and ego responses. You see how often your need to be right is a projection of insecurity rather than truth. Awareness of this pattern allows you to respond differently, calmly, intentionally, and confidently, without being dictated by impulses or the fear of judgment. Have you ever experienced peace when you let someone be wrong instead of trying to correct them? Share your story in the comments below. Reflect on this. What would your life feel like if you stopped trying to control how others perceive you and allowed yourself to remain calm, grounded, and confident no matter what they think? True confidence does not depend on being understood. It arises when you trust yourself, release the need for approval, and allow others to carry their own judgments. Unshaken, undisturbed, and quietly strong. True confidence is not something you manufacture through actions, speeches, or performances. Alan Watts often spoke of the difference between being and doing, emphasizing that real power and assurance arise from presence rather than effort. So many people mistake activity, persuasion, or visible achievement for confidence. They believe that if they do enough, speak enough, or prove themselves enough, others will recognize their worth. Yet authentic confidence is not about what you do, it is about who you are. Confidence as a state of being begins with acceptance. You acknowledge yourself fully, the flaws, the strengths, the uncertainties, and the contradictions, without needing to defend or justify. This acceptance is not complacency. It is the recognition that your value does not fluctuate with external opinions or outcomes. When you inhabit this state, confidence is no longer a performance, nor is it contingent on circumstance. It becomes an effortless radiance that others sense immediately. Most people try to act confident, as though it were a skill or a costume. They force posture, tone, or gestures to appear certain, but forced confide. NCE is fragile. It wavers under pressure and collapses under scrutiny. True confidence, by contrast, is fluid and enduring. It flows naturally from the alignment between inner truth and outward expression. You are confident because you trust yourself, because your presence is steady, and because your self-worth does not require constant reinforcement. Being confident also means letting go of the need to control outcomes. When your sense of value is tethered to results or approval, every challenge, misunderstanding, or criticism can destabilize you. In a state of being, you act with clarity and intentionality, but your peace is not dependent on results. You move through life grounded in self-trust, aware that your confidence is inherent, not contingent. Furthermore, confidence as a state of being deepens relationships and interactions. People are drawn to those who exude calm assurance without demanding recognition. Your presence communicates authority, composure, and reliability more convincingly than any argument, explanation, or justification ever could. Others feel safe around someone whose confidence arises naturally from their being, not from effort or performance. This state also encourages mindfulness and presence. You no longer live in the past, defending yourself, nor in the future, worrying about approval. Instead, you inhabit the present, responding authentically and intentionally. Every decision, every interaction, and every moment of awareness strengthens your sense of self and reinforces your quiet authority. Have you ever experienced a moment when simply being yourself felt more powerful than trying to act confident? Share your experience in the comments below. Reflect on this. What would change in your life if confidence became who you are rather than what you do? Authentic confidence is a state of being. It is quiet, steady, and unshakable. It does not shout, demand, or seek validation. It simply exists, rooted in trust, presence, and self-acceptance. When you cultivate this state, the world naturally recognizes the strength within you.